Well, today, as we know, is the deadline for Ace Magashule to publicly apologise after he sent a suspension letter to ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. If he doesn't, he could face a further disciplinary action. Magashule has now reportedly filed papers to challenge his suspension. Well, eNCA's Govan Whittle's following the story very closely for us. He's the guy in the know. Govan, good morning. So I suppose the big question is, are we expecting an apology in light of what we see now being reported of this court action being taken by Ace Magashule?
Yeah, so we are still expecting that apology. Whether or not it'll be forthcoming at this point seems unlikely, although the court action does point to a more cohesive strategy that's been put together by Ace Magashule and some of the few allies that he still has around him. And at this point, it doesn't look like he will apologize for what he did, but instead he might try to apologize for the reputation, for hurting the reputation of the ANC. From what our sources are saying is that he still believes he was within his rights as the Secretary General to take that action as per the Constitution, even though he believes that the rule that he was using is unconstitutional, and that's what he's challenging in court.
Well, you say few allies. What are you trying to tell us? What's happening to Ace Magashule's support within the ANC?
I would say it's in rapid decline. That's at least to the people who had traditionally been in his corner. Just look at the Free State, where he's known to be the power broker, at least in the northern Free State, particularly around areas like Parys. And the Free State and its regions are going to conference at the moment, towards a provincial conference as well, after the 2018 PEC was disbanded. And that process is being led by former Deputy President of the ANC, Kgalema Motlanthe. And all indications are that Ace's power base in the Free State has declined significantly, and his opponents from the southern Free State have made significant inroads, even up to Parys, where he stays. And throughout the rest of the country, we've seen indications that the MK-MVA, at least at its senior leadership, are no longer willing to go out on the front line and defend him as they were. Remember, they were quite prominent at his court case. And then further indications that his support base within the ANC Women's League is in decline. He's still very strong from what we know in COSAS, as well as the South African National Civics Organization, but they just don't wield enough influence within the ANC to try and turn those branches. Although that may change if we have regional conferences in Limpopo and in Mpumalanga that come back with results that are opposing the step-aside resolution and more specifically arguing for the Secretary General to return to his position. But at this point, it doesn't look like the ground is fertile enough for Ace to grow support to get him back into his position without any court action.
And you have to wonder, Govan, so what happens? I mean, what is his future in a party he says he's so dedicated to? Whether this apology happens today, and if it does happen, the fact that you're taking the party to court, how genuine will that apology be? Like we've been hearing, it might come with some conditions as well. How do you see this panning out? How do you see this ending for Ace Magashule and the ANC eventually?
I think we're in an interesting period with the regions going to regional conferences and the provincial conferences to follow. And at this point, many senior leaders and these dominant factions within the ANC are all trying to influence the outcome of those regional conferences. This all going towards next year's 2022 conference. And of course, the NGC would be an important marker of the way that those regional conferences went and what the attitude is from the branches towards the leadership. Remember, what's interesting here is that the conference resolved that people who are also implicated should report to the Integrity Commission, and if they fail to give an adequate reason why they were implicated, they should step aside from their position. The NEC took it a step further, saying those that are charged should step aside immediately. And ever since the NEC took that decision, it's been speculation about how the branches would react to that, because there hasn't been a huge meeting of all the ANC's branches, or enough of them, to respond to those decisions of the NEC. So the NEC will essentially be testing its decisions and whether they'll pass with the branches at something like the NGC. But we understand the NGC would be much smaller, much more controlled, and thereby giving the NEC more power to try and influence what happens there.
So the nitty-gritty might explain just some of the questions being asked this morning about former President Jacob Zuma and why the same rule has not applied to him. Doesn't actually hold any major position in the party at the moment.
Yes, and he still remains one of the more influential people within the ANC that has a lot of support in KwaZulu-Natal and would be key to the upcoming regional conferences and provincial conferences in KwaZulu-Natal, where you'd see power brokers trying to woo the former president into endorsing their candidate to perhaps contest for the ANC presidency or another senior position like deputy president of the ANC. So former President Jacob Zuma is still very much a big power player within the ANC. People know he has influence and he has some support, and it looks like they don't want to mess with that support until at least after the NGC.
But the fact that he doesn't have a position means you can't apply this rule to him at the moment. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's attending the NEC as a former ANC president and doesn't hold a current position, so you can't really ask him to step aside unless you suspend his membership of the party.
Okay, well, that's a whole other conversation. Govan Whittles, thanks very much. We'll be watching and waiting to see by the close of business today, will we get that apology from Ace Magashule? Govan Whittles, I'm sure, will be one of the first to know. Still